Welcome to the Dream Plan Start Grow Show, where the goal is to provide you tips and tools to create and execute your business plan for success. Welcome back to the Dream Plan Start Grow Show. My name is Allison Turner. I am your host. I created this show to interview other entrepreneurs on how they got their start, what successes they've had, what challenges they've encountered, and any tips or tools they may be able to give others that might help them along in their entrepreneurial journey. Today, I am honored to have with me Marty Castellanos. Said it right?
Yep.
His company is UMTC. I'll let him explain a little bit more, but he is former Coast Guard, retired Boca Raton Police Department.
Right.
And so he's kind of melded those two industries into what his next career is now, or his current career is now.
That's right.
So share with us a little bit about kind of what the business is overall first.
Sure. With UMTC, I'm an independent police trainer. I started the company to stay involved in law enforcement and military. I do guest speaking gigs and kind of support training with my experience. And then during COVID and during some of the riots a couple of years ago, a lot more of the general public wanted training. So I kind of spread out from wanting to serve the law enforcement agencies and communities that might want some training support to just a regular average civilian that wanted some safety training. I do private firearms classes, concealed carry classes. I had some churches contact me and ask me to help train their volunteers. And it's a shame that we live in a world where that's necessary, but I can support houses of worship with a little bit of information. They got to keep their people organized, especially if they're volunteers. There's no real academy for people like that. So I can take 34 years of experience and not let it go to waste.
Okay, no, that's great. So it started more supporting the police, but then it's now morphed into kind of not only the police side, but
more of the community. Exactly right. Exactly right. And I really didn't think that would be the case, but it's actually kind of rewarding. It's neat to meet different people and get in front of different people when they ask for like a guest speaker or something like that. It's actually a lot of fun to connect and stay involved in the community.
Okay, no, that's great. And I think that you have a perfect example of how you take kind of a previous career and then create that next step. Because I think a lot of people struggle. They retire, they're like, what am I going to do? And you've obviously kind of perfectly melded those two industries together. Not that they're industries, but those two careers together.
Sure. And in theory, a lot of veterans struggle with something to do when they get out of the military. Right. And I joined the military in 1987 in the reserves because I wanted a law enforcement experience to be a community police officer. And it was neat to be able to maintain a reserve career alongside a police career and do law enforcement for both. So I served my country as a federal law enforcement officer, and kind of like in the international arena, kind of dealing with some other countries sometimes, or just with federal regulations and stuff on the water. And it was very easy to translate that into a police job. So what I learned in the reserves in the military helped make me a good cop. What I learned as a cop helped make me a good instructor. And I started teaching in 1995. Somebody looked out for me when I was brand new and I didn't know nothing. Somebody gave of their time to kind of put their time and effort and their energy into me to make me a good cop in the Coast Guard. And I was able to pay it forward to turn around and help teach people. I really got a kick out of it. It was very rewarding to teach. And I just didn't want that to stop when I was done working.
Okay, no, that makes sense. So today you do more on the civilian side or more on the police, or kind of a
combination. It's mostly the civilian side. I came up with a seminar to put together in Boca every couple of months, and I talk about general home security, my experience as a police officer. Okay. I learned from other people's bad experiences getting burglarized or getting your car stolen or getting their car broken into, what I learned about all those situations to come back and share the knowledge there. And then what I learned about from people getting assaulted or mugged or something like that, what we learned there. And then what I learned from the technical aspect of teaching firearms training. And the legal concerns that kind of come with that. When I was a cop, I had some legal protection if I had to use force. As a civilian, I got to cover that myself.
Yeah, and I know sometimes our laws are kind of interesting.
Yeah, they're tricky.
Yeah, I mean, did they actually enter your property? Were they outside the property? And it's a different scenario for each. It seems to be in Florida. And
right. And growing up watching television and the movies, we have a misconception, or sometimes we're just flat wrong about how things work, how an arrest works, or how an attack works. In the movies, it's slowed down and it's dramatic. In reality, if you have a violent attack on you, it's that fast. It's super fast. So it requires a preparation ahead of time, paying attention to your surroundings. If you're equipped, if you make the decision to arm yourself, you want to get a quality weapon, quality training, and pay attention to your surroundings. Guns aren't for everybody. I'm not pushing that political aspect of it. But if you do, whether you do or you don't, you got to pay attention to what's going on around you so that you can avoid a confrontation. It's not about getting you ready to go out and be able to make you a killer. That's not what it's all about. It's about understanding how the world can sometimes be an ugly place, but we can avoid confrontation. We can avoid bad neighborhoods. We can avoid dark streets if we're walking or something like that.
Yeah. And I mean, I recently heard your seminar, I guess it was last week at the Boca Raton Chamber. And I know you talked a little bit about the awareness aspect. And, I knew a fair amount of that. Maybe I didn't call it the things you called it.
Right.
But I knew a fair amount. I mean, I lived in Chicago for many years, and I was in a neighborhood that was kind of mixed, and there was definitely some gang activity. There was some drug stuff going on the streets, and I would go out in the middle of the night because of my job. I was like a crisis intervention person, and so I'd get, back in the days of the beeper, the beeper would go off, and you'd have to go. I had to go to a police department because I would intervene in the police department. So, but getting to the car, because I was parking on the street, I was always kind of aware of what was going on around and who was where. And, as long as I left them alone, they left me alone,
Yeah, definitely. You know what? I traveled around the world with the military, and anytime we went to a different country, we got a safety briefing. Like in Costa Rica, these are the things to pay attention to. In Mexico, these are the things. In Colombia and Panama, same things like that. So it's the same anywhere around the world. You don't want to flash cash. You don't want to flash your jewelry. You don't want to call attention yourself. You want to stay in a group. If you're in a tourist kind of thing, it's the same in any big city around the world. It's a lot of it's common sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't travel with big jewelry.
Right. A lot of us don't.
Whatever is on me is kind of what jewelry travels, unless it's costume jewelry or something.
Right, exactly right.
But I mean, I think in the day of these things now with the cell phones, people are very distracted. They're walking on the street or in their neighborhood, and they're just scrolling through whatever the social media platform or their email or their text messages or whatever. I mean, especially the younger generations, but even some of the older generations I see around there doing that. So, I mean, what would be good tips to kind of, because obviously you can't be aware if you're sitting there focusing on the phone all the time.
Right. Our phones turn into something that our lives wrap ourselves around. And for business, our business is wrapped around the ease of communication with the phone. If you work for a large organization, you want to be reachable. You don't want your boss to get tired of not being able to reach you if you're employed someplace. So you're constantly looking at your phone. You want to be able to answer back. You want to have the answer because it's a competitive market in almost any profession. So you don't want to miss out on an opportunity. But the reality is if you crash your car, you're not going to make it to work. You're going to miss more than just an opportunity. So just like driving is something you got to focus on and put your phone away, walking is something you got to focus on and put your phone away. If you stop someplace, do your business on your phone and then put it away and pay attention to what's going on around you. That avoids a lot of confrontation. It lets the predatory kind of, people that are looking for something like that, it lets them know that you're paying attention. You're not going to be an easy target. After the terrorist events around the world, we talk about soft targets and hard targets. We can kind of translate that to people. We don't want to be a soft target where you're not looking at it. I want to say a North Carolina university did a study on speaking to violent felons, and they showed them a video, I think of a Chicago street where a ton of people walked past a street camera, and they asked the felons in prison, who in this video would you attack? And a lot of people would assume that it would be the women, the smaller people. No, it's not that at all. They're looking for the person that's not paying attention. The person who's not paying attention will let you get super close. And those are the people that get mugged or even get their iPhone taken away. iPhones are pretty expensive. They're a status symbol, and that's something that can get taken away.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a sad world we live in, but it is the world we live in.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
you know,
Sure.
you have to kind of just go with what it is at this point in time. But I know services like yours to me are needed because, I mean, I see some out there, but I mean, even the concealed carry class that Jack went to at one point, you know, like I could have gone to it, and I fired a gun once in my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like at a gun range with somebody that knew what they were doing, who was former military, but that was the only time. And right. all you had to do was sit in this classroom for a couple hours and then like go fire a gun with blanks in it. And that's
Right.
like, that was the test. And I was like, really?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't need that. I don't have the experience. So to me, it's kind of backwards of like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, you know?
Right. A lot of concealed carry training is quantity and not quality, right. Because it's a moneymaker for the business that's providing the training. If you can get a hotel room, conference room, put 50 people in there, give them a quick couple of hours of class, have them shoot a reduced gunpowder round into a cardboard box, you're going to get numbers. But if you really spend the time, you develop a relationship with your clients, if your prices are reasonable, a lot of the business is repeat business. And I have some clients that I'm walking through their journey, their training journey of beginning to pick up a weapon, learn how to be safe, learn the fundamentals of marksmanship, and then intermediate skills like clearing malfunctions, holding a flashlight next to it, using your other hand if this hand is injured. Most indoor ranges don't allow you to use holsters in this area, and that's a big part of carrying concealed. So you don't need to shoot the gun live to learn how to use a holster. If you have a credible instructor that's showing you how to pick the right holster for your gun, for your day, it's a lot of things. I laugh and joke around about my wife hates this. I tell people that my wife starts her day and she figures out what kind of person, what kind of shoes she needs. I start my day and I figure out what kind of pistol and what kind of holster I need. And it depends on my wardrobe, depends on where I'm going to go. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? If I'm going to go to a military base, what's the worst thing that can happen is that something happens at the base and I'm caught in the middle of making a terror attack or something like that. So I don't carry my little gun to the military base when I was an active police officer. If I go to a police station when I'm permitted to carry, I try to carry what they're carrying. If it's just jeans and a t-shirt day, it's a smaller gun and it's a more comfortable holster. And so it's stuff like that. It's important. Gear is a whole big thing. And it's not just firearms training, because the firearm itself is not a magic wand that's going to protect you. You learn the confidence to take care of yourself, whether it's a firearm or pepper spray or just your keys or something like that. And you're more aware and you're avoiding stuff like that. But it's also medical training. It's also communications training. When we grew up with a phone on the wall that you had to roll a dial, and again, we dialed 911 for a medical emergency or somebody's breaking into a car outside. We never had to dial 911 send. And at the advent of iPhones and smartphones and all the other stuff, a lot of people struggled with dialing 911 and then send. They would dial 911 and then wait, and the phone would never ring. We had to make that a community training kind of a thing. So 911 send, stay on the phone. And the technology that the communication centers have now is amazing. They can triangulate you with the towers and try to get to where you are. They're asking you specific questions. Our dispatchers are amazing. It just so happens that it's National Telecommunications Appreciation Week, and my wife is a dispatcher, so I had to give her a shout out. Our dispatchers can talk you through CPR on the phone, through delivering a baby on the phone, through the Heimlich maneuver on the phone. I've seen them do it. They're amazing people. They're the first responders.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. But now these phones have all this stuff built in, so you don't even have to do that. I mean, I know I walk like at 5 a.m. sometimes, and usually I'll have one of my dogs with me, one of the bigger dogs, but sometimes I'm walking alone. So between like this thing and this thing. Yeah.
Some of the technology on the phones, you can do a really quick distress call or call somebody specific, or with your Apple Watch, some of those features. I'm more of a Droid guy. Yeah. Because the Apple's not the droids that we're looking for.
Yeah, no, but if you just hold this button for like 5 seconds, it triggers 911.
It triggers 911. And if you call 911 by mistake, don't hang up. Stay on the phone and explain to them that it was a mistake. A lot of people get embarrassed and they hang up. Right. Well, the dispatcher's going to call back to see if you're okay, figure out where you are, what's going on. And if you're getting robbed, you might be forced to say, I'm fine, everything's okay. They got to figure out where you are and send you an officer to come check on you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the good thing. I mean, and if you fall, like even if I just had this thing, you know, if I fell for some reason or someone pushed you down or whatever,
Right.
I learned quickly at the last watch that I think I tripped over like a sidewalk issue or something. And like
Maybe
all
you
of
were
a sudden
looking at
my
your
phone,
phone.
I probably was, but all of a sudden my watch is like, I know I'm
Calling
talking to you.
911.
Yeah. No, don't do that though.
Don't do that.
Yeah. No, it was like asking me, you know, it looks like or it sounds like you fell. Do you need us to call 911? Like in my old one, this one's Verizon, but the old one was just Wi-Fi enabled. So even though it was Wi-Fi enabled, it still had the capability of calling emergency services. So.
Cool. And that's really neat. And for people with younger kids that's starting to carry an iPhone, you can load applications that'll tell you where your kids are. If you have older relatives, you give them that same application because some of the older folks kind of get lost or disoriented.
Yeah.
And before my dad passed away, he was having trouble navigating in the car. He would get lost and go north. Just go north on the interstate. And he would just think that in a couple of minutes, he'd see something that he recognized. And I had to go up to Fort Pierce one time to get him.
Oh, wow.
You know, and turn around and come home. Another time down to Homestead. Because so some of the older folks also, it's a neat tool, but technology supports having the right mindset. So again, it's not magic. It's not a guarantee. It's one little piece of the puzzle to kind of help you take care of yourself and the people you care about.
Right. I mean, how much of that, I mean, do you ever teach like kids classes at all on awareness and things like that? Because I think, you know, that generation growing up and even like the early, you know, young adult section, you know, where they've grown up with this technology, they've grown up with being in that distracted all the time society.
Yes. Yeah. And you know, it's funny you should mention that. My father was with the New York Police Auxiliary for a little while, and his supervisors told him to sit down at home and explain the gun to the kids and show them all the parts and tell them how it works and make it so boring that it wasn't something interesting to snoop around for. So parents that shelter the gun away from the kids, I get it that you don't want the kids to be curious about it, but if he sat and explained, he sat and explained it to me until I didn't care anymore. And then it was gonna be up here, way up high, don't touch it without me, I'll take you shooting when you're older. Fine, I want to go outside. It took the mystery out of it, and that was pretty neat. Is that a guarantee for everybody? No, it's not, but it's one way of doing that. And again, just like anything else, you don't let your kids play with the stove. You explain to them early on that you can get hurt. And you don't want to be afraid of a firearm. It's a piece of equipment, but you want to have a healthy respect for the damage it can do. So we teach our kids that. I didn't have a whole lot of really, really young kids as students in the military or with the police department. So now I'm kind of developing a child safety course because I've had some clients ask me about that. I partnered with a professional association called USCCA, and it's a self-defense club. Okay. And they have a training division, and as an independent instructor, I partner with their training division so that I get good material. Some of their ready-made PowerPoints save me some time so I can put my experience on them and put together a combined package. They're coming out with child safety stuff. So as soon as I get up to speed on that, I'll be able to turn around and offer that to my clients.
Okay, well, that's great. So how long have you been in business now?
I started UMTC in July of 2020.
Okay.
Because there was a charity in Titusville that was hiring retirees to present classes to cops for free. So I proposed it's the American Police Hall of Fame in Titusville. Okay. So it's in their charter to provide free training to cops. And some veterans actually brought me in and introduced me to them. So I proposed a class. If they have the budget for it from donations and their operating budget, then they would hire me on a case-by-case basis to provide training to the regional cops up there. And I did a traffic stop workshop. I did some officer safety seminars and some stuff that's geared towards the job for them. So that kind of made it legal. I learned from the other veterans in the business there's a lot of people doing this job. You can go, you can get, after 2 days, you can get certified to be a firearms instructor with no other experience. And that's not phenomenal. But if you dig around a little bit, you can find some experienced veteran military people or law enforcement people, some people with depth that can give you the reason we do this way. And that's worth the money.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So since you're you're not brand new, but you've only been in business, a little under 3 years. So
right, about 3 years.
So what are some of the challenges you've encountered like as a newer business?
Well, like I said, my vision was to just provide support for small law enforcement agencies that maybe don't have a robust training division. And it turns out that government vendor programs aren't, you don't just walk in the door and say, hire me, pay me to provide a service. You have to go through all kinds of stuff. There's regulations, there's bids, there's all kinds of other stuff. It was so much easier to get word of mouth spread, and actually had some instructors that had their own business that allowed me to help them in their classes, share their clients with me, just to say, hey, listen, don't leave without Marty's contact information. And it's good to learn from different people. Right. They weren't very protective or territorial about their client base. And they focus on one thing, I focus on something else, and we can provide a combined best service to the client. So marketing myself was something I had to learn about. You didn't have to do that in the military. No. In the military, we just talked about this in another interview. You have military students that are ordered to be there. 9 o'clock is the class. They're going to be there. I'm going to teach a class and we're done. Same thing with police department. I was assigned an officer for the phases of field training out of the academy, and their assignment, their order is to be with me so I can train them. As a business, like anything else, if you're selling cakes or cars or phones or anything like that, you got to get the word out there. So I had to learn about marketing and using social media to my advantage. It's free-ish. Free-ish when you use Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. So tagging one another, helping one another, word of mouth, personal references is kind of slowly gotten the ball rolling. And joining associations like the Chamber of Commerce puts me in front of people that I normally wouldn't be in front of. And it's eye-opening for them to say, hey, that's really interesting. You never know who wants that kind of service.
I mean, and you have kind of that unique, like you probably don't have, I'm not saying you don't have any competition, but within the Boca Raton Chamber, you probably don't have much competition.
There's not that much. There's only one or two other people that provide that service. And they might have like a bigger client base. Some of them go after more businesses. Yeah. And I offer my services to individuals and churches. Okay. So it's out there. But you know what? The professionals don't compete. They collaborate. I had another guy call me up and say, he just got a church job and he could use a hand. So he subcontracted me to provide the service that the church asked for, and he paid me, and we delivered a product together. I don't care if I'm wearing his shirt with his logo on it. It's all about keeping people safe, legal, and responsible. Exactly. So that was neat. And just being patient. And it wasn't something overnight. My accountant has been very generous with his time and given me some ideas and said, okay, you want to start making money soon, okay? Good advice. That's a great accountant. Thanks a lot. Do everything for free. Yeah, he's a good guy. And you know what? I'm in that groove, like I said, where I wasn't collecting a fee for services. It was my job to teach in the military and a part-time responsibility at the police department. So I got to kind of have to turn that back on and explain that this is the price and this is why I charge what I charge. I'm more expensive than the run-of-the-mill 2-day instructors because I bring a lot of experience and good and bad experiences that I've had to keep people safe. And when people understand that, the people that are serious about training will pay. I'm not charging an arm and a leg, but it's not just an arm. Well, and I think that's important that you know your worth and kind of what you bring to the table, because a lot of business owners don't necessarily, especially when they're early on in their business career, because they're just looking for clients. They're just like, oh, you only want to pay that? Like, come on in, and things like that. So I think, if you can know your worth and know what value you're bringing and then stick to that, then your message becomes much more clear from the start. And it's not murky of like, I interviewed someone else and she gave the example of, and I think she said she'd wish she'd done this, really early on. I think she's about 10 years in, but she owns an event planning company. And she said, like, if you want to, create pools and, build pools, then don't go and build koi ponds over here because someone wants a koi pond, but they don't want a pool because now your message, the brand is basically confused because do you build koi ponds or do you build pools? And those are two very different things. So. Yeah, and I learned, somebody told me a long time ago, hey, listen, when you're just getting started, no job is too small, no fee is too small. Get started, get people to know who you are. But like anything else, too much of a good thing, you don't want people to think that you're that cheap. There's introductory rates and stuff like that. Yeah. When I put out my seminar, I started thinking, how much is my time worth? What are people getting out of it? But if they knew what they were getting out of it, they wouldn't need the seminar. So a big sticker shock would kind of keep people away. So I kind of came down on my price for my seminars. So now it's just $50 for the afternoon. I started out at $100 because it was a 4 or 5 hour class and I knew what I was offering them, but people didn't. So I just kind of had to do trial and error, bring the price down and see what drew more people.
Well, yeah. And I think you have to think, from a expansion part of, okay, how many of these people could then hire me privately? Or
Right. And that's actually turned into the natural pipeline. If I have a seminar, 20 people might come to the class, learn about awareness and the law and the physiology of a violent encounter and how fight or flight works in the brain and in the body and in the adrenaline and all the other stuff, and how all that stuff can be used to your advantage, and how it can rattle you if you don't understand what's happening.
Right.
Because that's what happened to cops and soldiers in the wars and in shootings. They thought something was wrong with them because of the way their bodies were changing and reacting to a fright. So learning all that stuff is interesting. Some people on a break or by the end of class would take me up on the offer and say, I would like a private lesson. And so the pipeline went from classroom to 1 or 2 people that wanted private lessons. And now I've accumulated a small client base of people that I've taken shooting myself. And I know that they can follow instructions and that they're ready for the next step. And then I found an outdoor range that allows a little bit more flexibility of what you can do. And I'm taking my private shooters up into a group class to be able to work with holsters and working outside and moving and shooting and stuff like that. You have some limitations at an indoor range in the city, and you go up to an outdoor range where they understand who you are and that you're going to be responsible. You're not going to do any crazy ninja rolls or making people do handstands or shoot with their toes or something crazy like that. So yeah, a lot of it is, it's the advanced class. We're not there yet. A lot of it is reputation. A lot of people know that you're a patient and knowledgeable, and you're going to go at their pace, and that's what it's all about. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. Being retired from the military and with the police department is a blessing because I'm not feeding my family off of my business. So the trial error, that I spent way too much money on marketing myself and knickknacks and business cards and stuff like that. But I have them, so it's kind of cool. And that's probably why the accountant and my wife laugh at me at tax season. Like, you spent all your money. I'm like, well, yeah, everything I make with the company, I turn around, I sink back into the company, whether it's my own continuing education or stockpiling, student supplies. I started offering books that were an impact to me during my career, like The Gift of Fear by Gavin DeBecker or Beware the Body by Sean Grogan. And there's a whole library of things that as a cop at 2 agencies were beneficial to me. And I'm in the business now of sharing knowledge. It doesn't have to be something I made up. So if I say, hey, listen, here, this book is amazing, I recommend this book. And when 3 clients said, do you sell the book? I said, no, I'm just recommending it. She said, well, if you sold the book, I would buy it right now. And then I was like, duh, listen to the market. And then the 3rd time she said, I'd rather give you the money because you're a good guy. So then I called publishers, got bulk rates, and now I stock the books that I thought were significant, and I bring them to class. I might do a giveaway. I might do a little surprise gift, or at the end, my price is fair and people will go home with 2 or 3 books. And again, it's about sharing knowledge that makes me feel good.
Yeah. I bought The Gift of Fear on Audible because I got too many books stacked up right now. So
that seems to be how I get through books today.
So
is in the car.
I'm like, I needed the Audible version. So when I walk in the mornings or something like that, I can listen to the Audible.
Definitely. But you don't want to make yourself isolated to where you can't hear somebody sneaking up behind you either. In the car, it's great. For road trips or the commute, you'd be surprised by the end of the week.
I got a dog with me. So
you got a dog.
They don't have headphones on.
All right, good. Well, then you got to watch the dog.
Yeah, exactly. Because he gets scared easily, the big dog. I'm like, really? You're not really going to be helpful, are you? I'm going to have to defend him.
Right. The defining moment for me on the knowledge was I had students, I was training Coast Guard personnel that were going overseas, and they were helping support the Navy mission in the Middle East. And we had some students go out there and they got to spend a year, and when they come back, they process out through the same training command to fly home and then go to their next assignment in the military. Well, I had 2 kids with 4 or 5 hours to kill, get into a rental car, drive an hour out of their way to come see me and thank me for the training a year before when they were getting ready to go overseas. That really clicked with me, that they went out of their way to thank me. Everybody else is thinking about just going home. They've been gone for a year,
Right.
but they took the time to seek me out and thank me for the training. And some of it was what the military had provided me to give them.
Yeah.
But my flavor of it, they said that they appreciated it. And that resonated with me. And that made me want to continue teaching even beyond my active service.
Okay. Well, that's great. So you said basically your business is maybe at the point of breaking even right now because you're putting money back in.
Exactly right.
Basically
Exactly
putting
right.
everything back in.
This year with joining the Chamber of Commerce, meeting more people, I'm getting more private jobs, more of those seminars, and I might be above the red ink by this time next year. I'm optimistic. I'm cautiously optimistic.
I mean, do you think, because obviously I know I'm assuming you have a pension from the Boca Raton Police Department.
I do.
Which is part of, being able to do this.
The comfort zone, right, exactly.
Yeah,
It
but do
makes
you
it
think
easy.
the comfort zone is detrimental to growing this business?
Yeah, I take a lot more risks with what I spend. Somebody says, hey, how'd you like to advertise in our magazine? Oh, I wouldn't do it if it was between that and keep the lights on, or that and buy groceries. So if it's your only source of income, I'd say be conservative with the risks that you take, or pick what you're going to spend on marketing yourself and stick to it. Because I think, oh, there's little squishy police cars. All right, I can put my name. I can put my name on a pen. I can put my name on a notepad. I bought hats. I have embroidered hats. I bought these shirts. These are kind of cool.
Wait, where are the hats?
I'll get you a hat. I'll get you a hat.
I like hats.
So yeah, stuff like that. There's just a ton of good ideas out there. You can't do them all.
No.
Nobody has that much money. Maybe IBM could or something like that. Maybe Apple could, But starting out, I would just say, hey, do one thing. And when you get out of the red, do another thing. Now, the trade-off is getting my brand out there, getting my logo out there with my website out there, has gotten me some phone calls. Okay. But you can do that on Google, or you can do that on Instagram or Facebook, or word of mouth just as well. I think I just had to, I was impatient and I had money to burn and I went and did that.
I don't want your wife to hear that part.
Oh, she saw it. She laughs. You know what? She wants me to be active.
Yeah.
So
don't want to sit in the house.
My pensions are contributing to the household. She's got a good paying job, so we're doing fine. This is kind of like a hobby that might turn into some profit.
Okay. So are you tracking the stuff you are spending money on? Are you tracking your return on each of those?
I wouldn't say that I'm doing a good job at that. No, I have bank statements. I have records of it.
But do you ask, like the clients that find you, do you ask like how they came to you?
I've just started doing that. So in the class, when we all introduce ourselves in my seminars, I ask them how they heard about me. And some of them heard about me through USCCA. Some of them heard of me because their neighbor took my class and they heard it was cool. Some of them are people that I know. Some of them I knew from the chamber. I offer the chamber a discounted rate for some of the seminars. I do a 2-for-1. So it kind of word spreads. And so I kind of gauge in that. This last class, the majority of the people found me either on Google or on the USCCA site, because it was something that people are already going to that are interested in that. Okay. The general public, you kind of get out there with social media. I mean, I'm not buying an ad on the side of the bus like you'd see in New York City all the time. I'm not there.
You're not doing that yet.
But if somebody offered it to me, I'd probably be tempted to do it.
Oh, man, get a commission off this.
Right, exactly.
I'd be like, go ask him, offer him this.
Exactly.
I'll take 10%.
Right. This sucker will buy a bench ad. Call him.
Oh, I got a different.
Do you know somebody?
No, I got a different one though for you. I'll talk to you later about that.
Right, cool. But yeah, so again, if I was feeding my family off of this, I'd be a lot more careful. I'd be tracking that, and then maybe I had the opportunity through the chamber to talk to people that had an expertise on social media and stuff. Yeah. And I got some tips on my website and kind of cleaning up. Some people caught typos on my website. I went with a very basic GoDaddy website that I was happy with, because I think about what I enjoy seeing on websites, and a lot of good people who give me good tips, and I try to keep it up to date.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah. As long as the information's up to date, and I've taken a look at the site and.
Cool. Appreciate that. You were one of those people that said, "Fix this. This isn't clear enough," and that. And I'm excited about what I can offer. It's hard to put yourself in the mindset of somebody that doesn't know what I'm doing and how to attract them. So it's been a learning experience, and thanks to people that have been generous with their advice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, as a business owner, entrepreneur, when you first start out, it's like you have to kind of learn because you're used to, you were used to being in the police box and then the Coast Guard box.
I didn't have to advertise. Like I said, students were assigned
but here
to me.
was your, obviously you probably didn't have a job description, but here's like what you do, you know, and every day you do the same thing when you, maybe the hours are different or whatever it is, but it's essentially the same routine. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges with business owners, now all of a sudden there's no box. So you got to make your own box, or maybe not make a box, but make your own schedule. You got to make your own plan. You got to, you're the marketer, you're the salesperson, you're the implementer of the sale. You're, you're the web designer. You're the
exactly. I don't have a staff. It's just me.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. And I think that's one of the greatest challenges. And once someone can get past that and really start becoming more profitable and gaining, being able to delegate some of those, we should delegating the accounting part.
Right, exactly right.
But once you can start delegating some of that, then, that makes it, I think, easier because then you can focus even more on, even if you're still the salesperson, selling, implementing. And
right. And you know what? I hated the idea of being a salesperson. I just wanted to be good enough that people knew or to provide a service that people already want. If you got to convince somebody of this, it's kind of hard. Convince somebody. I'm not going to change your mind if you don't think everybody should have a gun. I don't think everybody should have a gun.
Right.
But because it's not a requirement, we talked about concealed carry permits. You get a permit to carry a gun. That's the beginning of your journey and training. So it's kind of like a learner's permit in a car. You get your learner's permit when you're 16 now?
Yep.
Or whatever it is. You're not ready for NASCAR. You're not ready for the Florida. You're not ready for the Florida Turnpike. But the more you drive, the more good experience you have. And you know what? There's an old saying that good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment, from screwing something up, from crashing, from learning, I was going too fast, or it's raining, or I was ignoring the squealing of my brakes, and then the mechanical part of the car failed me because I failed the car. So taking care of your stuff so that your stuff can take care of you. All of that stuff translates into self-defense and firearms planning and training. Like I said, there's no magic wands that make it all wonderful. No. Pepper spray doesn't always work. Stun guns don't always work. Guns don't always work. And it's about learning all about all those things so that you have options. There's a neat piece of trivia. And again, not to be morbid, but we study bad events and we learn what we can from them. More people are saved after an active shooting event from the people that snap out of it and jump onto the first aid needs, whether it's grabbing clean towels at a school, gym, locker room and applying direct pressure or applying tourniquets, or if you're in a different setting, say in a mall or a restaurant, an older person has a heart attack and somebody starts doing CPR. More lives are saved by the people that attack the medical mitigation part than good guys with guns. A good guy with a gun might stop the threat, or the threat might go away, or the cops might show up and neutralize the threat. Right. But then we still have work to do. And the people that jump on it and do it save lives. Medical is huge. If you have kids and you haven't been CPR certified, what are you waiting for? If you work in the restaurant business and you're not CPR certified, what are you waiting for? If you don't have a stop the bleed kit and an AED in your office, I've used AEDs 3 times to save people that have had either heart attacks or choking or the CPR and stuff. It's the other side of the coin. It's offense and defense,
Yeah.
So it's necessary. Again, it's not, I bought a gun, I'm going to be okay.
No.
I bought a gun, I'm at the beginning of a lifestyle change to protect myself and the people I care about.
Right. No, and I think that's important. And I agree with you. I know when I worked in the tennis world, I always had to do the Red Cross training and had the training in the AED and knew where the thing was. And luckily I didn't have to use it ever, but
And that's part of hospitality. Somebody comes to a tennis center, they expect that the staff is ready for an emergency.
Right.
They're not just taking your money. That would be a racket. I also collect bad jokes. That's the other side.
I know. I heard some of them the other day. I was like, really?
It's terrible. If you drink, I'm hilarious.
Now you threw me off, but with the bad joke. But that's interesting that restaurant, you would think that, although I guess there's so much turnover in restaurants that you never know who's going to be there tomorrow. So, paying for your employees to do CPR training probably is not what you're going to spend your money on.
Right. And so you got to find a deal. But if you find a deal, you hope that the quality of the training doesn't suffer. But walk into an office building and look around and you'll see a stop the bleed kit and an AED near the fire extinguishers. If you go through an apartment building, you'll find pull alarms. If you go to a hotel on vacation, you'll see red exit signs or green exit signs and the pull alarms. And maybe in the lobby, there's an AED or something like that, fire extinguishers. So they're out there. And that's one of the great things that we do to protect our schools. There's fire alarms, there's sprinkler systems, there's flame retardant carpets, there's flame retardant paint. There's nothing in a school that burns easily. And we have drills.
Yeah.
The scary aspect of an active shooter keeps people from rising to that quality of prevention in the schools. I don't think a kid has died in a fire, thank God, in about a century. But we still all do all those things. We need to apply that effort and equipment and training into the violence prevention training. But it's an emotional issue, and people disagree on it, and it kind of puts the brakes on progress.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's more than two sides, but the two main sides that like fight against each other, I wish they would like come together. And
it centers on the gun thing. No guns, more guns. But I think school shootings are the result of a multitude of problems that crash together. So the solution has to be multifaceted as well to respond to each of those things. Security, training, awareness, mental health, support for these kids, what's going on with these kids. A lot of these active shooters telegraphed their play somehow. It was on social media. They wrote a letter. They said something to somebody. They've been in trouble before involving a weapon. And if we ignore the signs, we're not as ready as we could be.
Right. No, I mean, I think that's true. And I know in the workshop we were in the other day, you talked about knowing kind of a baseline. And I know you were talking more about neighborhood, but I mean, it's probably the same thing as far as like the school shooting thing is like know your baseline. So if, a kid, at the beginning of the year is like this, and all of a sudden is like taking this nosedive down and like starts talking dark or whatever. I mean, like changes.
Right. Teachers
then, pay attention to what's going on here.
Yeah. You ask any teacher that loves their kids in their classroom, she could tell you all about their personalities. So he or she can pick up on, hey, somebody took a dive and they're darker, they're dressing darker, they're talking darker. And hey, what's going on with that person? If we could steer that person towards some counselor or a staff member that's trained to kind of maybe get the truth out of them. What's going on? What's bothering you? Maybe mom and dad are splitting up. Maybe they're growing and just not enjoying adolescence. I know I didn't. It's not fun. But a lot of people have a hard time with. A lot of kids have a hard time with that. And same thing in churches. We tell our church volunteers, hey, your congregation or in your synagogue, if somebody is happy-go-lucky and all one day they come in and it looks like they haven't shaved or they're just down or they're not participating, you can ask them, hey, what's going on with you? What do you, can I help you with something? Can I get you in front of a minister? And maybe, you came to a house of worship for a reason.
Right.
Maybe they're just too shy to say, I need a one-on-one with my rabbi, or I need a one-on-one with my pastor because my wife left me or because my car got repossessed and I can't make ends meet. And sometimes people just need a qualified ear to listen. Yeah. And a lot of these houses of worship have resources like, hey, so-and-so's hiring, I can connect you. Or there's a program where there's emergency funds or shelters and we can connect you. The Boca Raton Police Department maintained a victim advocate, and she had pages of resources that were there for victims and kids that were involved. So like some of the bigger cities have been doing that for a while too. And so it's not just about chasing, tackling, and cuffing the bad guy.
Right.
It's about what the community needs. And if you're in a school, what do your students need? If you're in a house of worship, what do the individuals in your church or your synagogue need? If we can pick up on that, we may not know that person would have been an active shooter a month from now. Maybe we'll never know, but it's not about the glory of it. It's about
preventing it
by helping one another out. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. So like you said, the baseline of what's normal, whether it's your neighborhood, the cars on your street, how your neighbors act, or how people are in business settings or educational settings, you might pick up on something either that's missing or out of place and it's off the base. And a lot of experts talk about that. And if we pay attention to those things, we might head off a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what's next for UMTC? Because I know you said, now you're growing, now you're still putting all the kind of money back in.
Sure.
Like, do you have, and I'm talking more on putting my business coach hat on for a second,
Sure.
instead of the marketing side, but, do you have like set goals for this year from a revenue side? Are you gonna, like your accountant asked, are you going to start making money?
You start making money, yeah.
But do you have set goals? Do you have ways, because I think that's, a lot of the listeners here like to know, like, if you're a relatively new business, obviously you had some support because you had the pensions in place, which is great. Right. But not everyone has that. So
right. So I've got room to fail, and I have with the advertising and the marketing and stuff like that. So I did those educational seminars to draw people to my shooting classes. The educational seminars were quarterly, but joining the Chamber of Commerce, having more people show up, I took a risk, and I'm having them every other month. So my goal is to, instead of having 4 seminars this year, have 6, and just kind of bump that up and really plug the services that I offer to try to get more people out of each class to take me up on the offer for private training. Again, I hate the sales aspect of it, but it's necessary. And so I just have to be more positive about it and to tell people, listen, I tell people who I am, what I offer, and it is doable. I'd like to have more people come to, like we said, my pipeline has been classroom, private lessons, shooting group for a class. Yeah. I'm 2/3 of the way there. My first shooting group will be at the end of the month. Okay. And it's people that I've personally taken shooting myself or that I know are capable of doing that. So I'm approaching that landmark in my vision for my business.
Okay. No, that's great. And I think, it sounds like you're starting to make that progress.
Right. And after that class, I'm going to learn a lot. I've worked with other professionals that I admire, assisting them in their group shooting classes, and they've been generous with their advice and lessons learned. So I'm able to do that. And hopefully I'll learn how to kind of make that work for me, or maybe streamline a lesson plan. Right. That was one of the neat things in the military. That was a canned lesson plan. We didn't deviate from it very much. I could tell a C story or a success story, and that's great. But when it's my curriculum, I can say, listen, here's the safety things we want you to learn. Here's the techniques I want you to learn, and we'll tell you why. And we're just going to practice safe stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, you talked about ramping up the classes, and I can remember where I was going with this because I had the great point, but now.
Well, the pipeline and kind of getting more people who can do that. Maybe a defined goal. No, I don't have a defined goal. I would like to do more classes, get more clients, have more people shooting with me. It's a vague goal, not a defined.
Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that if you don't have a pension. If your wife's got a good job, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a clearly defined goal to kind of hit. Yeah. I just know that progress is something that makes me happy.
Yeah. Now, the one thing I was going to say about sales, and I think a lot of people think sales is like that dirty word, and I can kind of hear that from you. Yeah. Just like some people think guns are the dirty word.
Sure.
So, you can flip it that way. But I think, if people think of sales as how you're impacting others, and that's really what it is, like you're offering a service that improves someone else's life or a group's life, or, hopefully prevents some tragedy from happening, things like that. I think that's sales, because I've been where you are before. And it was funny when I started this business, I started with a business partner. And so I was the one out networking, but she was kind of the closer. And then we realized pretty quickly in our business journey that we weren't good in business together. Yeah. And he laughs over there, but, and we split. And so I took over the business basically. And then I was like, oh crap. No, like I gotta.
Then you're missing what that person was good at.
I was like,
right?
I'm like, crap. No, like I gotta sell.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't sell, and I'm thinking like kind of the same thing as what you were saying. But I mean,
in a perfect world, you put out advertising.
I didn't have the pension, so I was like,
exactly.
well, if I want to eat, let's figure this out.
Right. If you put out a product or advertise your product and you hope that it speaks for itself and people are going to come running and say, sign me up, that's not the reality of it. No. It's not. You got to get out and meet people, and you got to get.
You got to build the relationships. Right. They got to see the value and what you bring. Obviously, like you said, it's not for everyone, but even the awareness class, even if it stops there for somebody.
Yeah. If it stops there, that's some revenue. And again, it's not about making money for me. It's about staying busy as a veteran and having a purpose in life. A lot of veterans struggle with a purpose and fall into a dark depression, and they get into addiction, and their marriage suffers and all this other stuff, men and women, and suicide is a real fear for a lot of them. So I think it's why my wife is so supportive. She read that someplace and she's like, anything you want to do is fine. I'm like, hey, I want to take this class, do it. It might be $500, go. And I'm like,
get out of the house.
I'm like, yeah, but it's not going to be 3 nights in a hotel. It's a round trip. It's a little bit of a drive. Yes, go do it. She just doesn't want me sitting on the couch staring at the television, because I can vacuum or something,
Yeah, either vacuum or go to that class.
Right,
like,
exactly.
That's a tough choice.
It's kind of funny. She'd get up in the morning and say, what do you have going on today? If I say I'm meeting a client, or I have a client, or I'm having a prospective client, then that's what she wants to hear. If I say nothing, then before she leaves the house, I have a list of things to do. So come up with something.
Exactly.
Come up with something every day. If you come up with something every day, your business is moving a little bit every day. Yep. And it's not to get my wife off my back.
In case she's watching.
In case she's watching. She's going to be watching this. She's my biggest fan. She's the finance manager at home, and I'm the security manager. And I know she looks at my business and goes, stupid man. But she sees it as a hobby and some way to pass the time and make me happy. So again, if we were living off of this business, it would be a lot more structured. It would have to be. And you got to do something every day. Get something done.
Yep, absolutely. So as we start to wind down, I ask one question to kind of all my guests. And if you were going to provide one tip to someone who is starting a business, so didn't have a business yet, was starting a business that either you've kind of learned along the way, maybe you knew when you started, and I know you're not that far into your business,
right?
But what would that be?
I think, the old saying that you don't go grocery shopping when you're hungry, because then everything looks good. That was my big mistake. I spent too much money on marketing and advertising because I didn't want to close. I didn't want to be the salesman, the cliche of the car salesman that nobody wants to be. I didn't want to be that. I thought, hey, I'm going to spend some money on advertising and stickers and cars and pens and stuff. And that merchandising or the promotional stuff is I got to take my own advice. It's not magic, just like a weapon isn't magic to protect you. So think about it as slices of a pie, and you spend this much money on marketing, spend this much on your own betterment, spend a little bit on a professional association like the Chamber of Commerce and learn from other people. Just the free classes alone, the master classes, I've learned a lot about, a little bit about budgeting and a lot about closing and merchandising and the social media aspect of it. So don't chase after every good idea. Do one or two good things for merchandising and get yourself out there, get in front of people that need to know what you offer and what you're selling. That's what I'm trying to do with podcasts and meetings and any speaking engagement is a lot of fun for me. I enjoy telling stories. A lot of training now is a story, and that especially after you get past the basics, that's pretty neat. So it's networking. Networking makes the world go around. That's fun because I'm a social creature.
Social butterfly.
Yeah, I am. I totally am. My wife hates it. We go to Disney and run into somebody we know. And Sandra's like, of course you know somebody here. We were in North Carolina and saw somebody like at a truck stop. And she goes, of course you know somebody here.
Yeah, that's this one over here. If I'm in Delray, I run into people I know. But like once I leave this area, sometimes they recognize me and I'm like, oh crap, it's out of your element. You're like trying to figure out where you know each other from because you're both looking at each other like, you look familiar.
Right. Where do I know this person from?
Yeah.
You were in the military, weren't you? With us, it's guys with short haircuts. Where do I know you from? She goes, I'll be in the car. She just leaves. You guys get caught up. It's fine. But yeah, the short answer to what you said is just don't think that it's going to happen overnight. Be patient and don't chase after every great idea because all your money will run out.
And if anyone wants to get in touch with you or kind of learn more about your services, what's
Sure.
the best
My
way?
website is umtc-instructor.com or on Instagram at Marty_UMTC.
It's a lot of underscores and hashes.
It is.
Yeah.
The UMTC kind of look like a military abbreviation. It stands for Uncle Marty Training and Consulting. So if you can remember that, Uncle Marty Training and Consulting, you can Google me and find me pretty quick.
Okay. Yeah, remember that. Because the hash thing,
Right,
dash,
exactly.
I'm like,
Yeah, that's tough. But you'd be amazed at what young people remember today with double speed thumbing their texts and stuff.
True,
Yeah.
but not all of us are that age.
Not all of us. Not all of us. It is. I can remember not leaving the house with a cell phone.
Yeah.
Now, if you leave the house with a cell phone, you got to turn around and go back and get it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I forgot mine one time and I left it at home and I had to get here for a meeting and it was a Zoom meeting, so I left the phone at home and then I was trying to get into somebody's website and it was like double authentication. So I was using my phone, my office phone, and then they're like, "Oh, we need to do this," and I'm like, "Well, I can't text my client right now. I don't have the phone."
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, this is like a funny story, but
it is. I resisted it. I resisted having a smartphone until about 2010, and then the government made me carry one around.
Government. See, blaming the government.
I was a government employee, and they needed me to be email accessible.
Yep.
So I had to have a good phone so that I had to have a phone good enough to handle the security for military email.
Yep.
And that good phone did so much other cool stuff that we all got hooked.
Yep. But you weren't in the days of BlackBerry then.
No,
Right,
I laughed at the BlackBerry addicts. We called it crackberries. We laughed at it. It actually had a roller on it. We're like, come on, really? That was the phone that made me resist wanting a phone. Like if you could.
I love those phones.
I
hate the stupid keyboard now.
I remember the ones that would flip
you
open.
Actually touch it. No, I didn't have that one.
Was it a kick? Was it the kick one that you had a little keyboard and you could flip open those?
I like the little keyboard on there, like you could actually feel. It was like a tactile thing, and I was like, I hate the keyboards now.
Instead of a glass screen.
Yeah.
Before my dad passed, we got him a nice Droid, and the glass screen he didn't have. Like it wasn't literally pushing a button. He struggled with it. Yeah. He was like,
My mother struggles with hers sometimes, and she's in her 80s. So
I remember saying, if there's a smartphone that can make me a pizza, I'll take it. Otherwise, I just need it to be a phone. And I resisted it. I didn't want it. And then again, when the government said I had to have it, I was like, oh, this is cool.
All the fun stuff I've been missing out on.
I have the internet in my pocket. All right, this is distracting now.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, but thank you very much for joining me today, Marty.
It's an honor to be here.
Appreciate
Thanks for the time and the opportunity to talk about my experience, and I hope it helps people.
Yeah, well, thank you. And thank you, everyone, for joining us on the Dream Plan Start Grow show. If you have any questions for me, or you're looking to start a business, or maybe you're struggling early on in your business, feel free to reach out to me at dreamplanstartgrow.com. I do offer a 30-minute complimentary consultation, so sign up for that. My calendar's on there. I would love to have a conversation and help you in any way I can.
She helped me.
Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Dream Plan Start Grow podcast with Allison Turner. If you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe and leave a review. Join the Dream Plan Start Grow community by following us on Facebook or Instagram at Dream Plan Start Grow. See you in the next episode.